And let me. Hey, good morning, guys. Ken at Tourist Capital. This is the Creativity 202 check-in for July 2nd, 2023. We want to recognize brand new father for the first time, Hamad, once again. Beautiful young baby girl into the world. Mom and baby are doing fine, so all our prayers and love and support for the eternal optimists who bring children into this world believing it's going to be a better place, and we're all working to do that. So, just congratulations, young fella, and couldn't be happier for you. She'll always be your baby girl. That's just the way it is. So I'm gonna we'll get a quick check in around the horn, just 10 or 20 seconds of welcome and who we all got here today. Greg, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here, chugging along, wrapping up a lot of the foundations material and building some systems on when to enter and when to exit specifically for me. And it's been great, and I really appreciate everyone in the cohorts and Ken's work, and I'm just super appreciative of everything that's been going on so far.
Yeah. So yeah, let me just say while we're here on that, the foundations course is a lifetime access, and full year you guys coming in to the check-ins. I don't want you to feel inhibited by that at all. We got a new cohort of 4 guys starting as of yesterday. I've got them all enrolled. Nobody showed up. I haven't sent them much. I'm dragging my feet on that, but so the example that you guys set will be really helpful to them. So I would, it's better for all of us if you remain active, kind of in the weekly check-ins, and really I think take advantage of that nightly podcast to show your work and ask your questions, and that sort of reinforces everything we want to do, and shows the spirit of community learning that we're trying to emphasize. So. Keep up the good work. And Hamad, proud papa. How are things going?
Yeah, um, really well. Had the paternity leave. As you said, my wife Abir is doing all right, and my little Sophia is the cutest thing I've ever seen. So really happy to be a father,
Yep.
and more excited actually to get back into work now that I know what I'm working for or who I'm working for.
Well, I'll tell you, the I learned in the early '90s with my baby girl on my lap that the best day trading that I ever did was when I put my youngest daughter on my lap. She was born in '93, and I would be holding her in my lap, listening to Mozart and Bach, and day trading the markets on 5-minute charts, which at the time was incredibly fast and wild to me. But it was like the opposite of, alpha male sweatshops and intensity and all. It was just very, very calming, and I knew what I was trading for. That made every decision. Now, I don't recommend you do that right away, but that shift in mentality was an incredible gift from my daughter to me, to realize the importance of the proper mental state and the alignment of what I was trading for. So in 1993, I'm still a young major in the United States Army, and trading on the side, and had some opportunities in the mornings to go in late and have my daughter on my lap when I'm trading. And then when I was start doing some currencies and futures, I could trade in the evenings with my daughter on my arms. And boy, did that make a difference in calmitude and seriousness. You want to talk about skin in the game? That's how that works. So yeah. Chun Long, how are we doing today, sir?
Yeah, very well. Still enjoy the best time of the year in Calgary, Alberta. Very nice weather, I hope.
Yeah, we had a thunderstorm last night, so it's back into the 70s Fahrenheit, so it is just wonderful. And our soccer team crushed Vancouver last night 3-0. It looked like men against boys. So Sporting Kansas City's back, and nobody wants to play us. Not right now. We're hitting on all cylinders, so that was good. And Jeff, how are we doing out there in Utah, sir?
Great. We just finished our aviation safety briefing for the morning, so I'm the guy that does the risk assessment for everyone. And we all know that its value is limited. Really, the value is awareness of risk, because we're doing it off of forecasts and other things, and there's so many degrees of freedom that it changes all the time. But anyway, everything's good here. So I've found me a little piece of shade and a used lawn chair, and I'm going to turn my camera off, because walking around holding your phone out at arm's length for an hour is pretty fatiguing.
Hey, just do me a favor. Do me a favor. Show me that landscape of that high desert again, because boy, do I love that. You know, that's like the National Training Center out in Death Valley, and just out. It just takes me back. I just love. Yeah. I love that. That terrain. So go ahead. If do you feel like going first?
Sure.
Okay. Let me get you set up as a assistant presenter here, and then we'll get that moving.
Yeah, if you could just share it. I don't know if I'll even be able to see it on my phone.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I can do that.
I've got 2 note cards, old-fashioned, here in front of me, and my phone in a lawn chair. That's where I'm at today.
All right, let me see if I can open that up then. And I'll try to keep it in touch. I'll keep it in tune with what you're
yeah, we'll keep it pretty simple. Yeah, there's about 50 people inside, so that I don't interrupt them and agitate them. I moved outside.
Yeah, let's see. Just give me a half a second. I gotta get the let's see, TF seminar. Okay, there's that. That's open. And now let me share the screen. Share screen. Share. Okay. Can you guys see that okay now? I'm going to scale it up here in a second.
Yep, we got it.
There we go. Do you want the 2-on-1, or do you want to concentrate on one at a time?
One at a time would be great.
Whoop. You got a little large.
And I'll just start off with a few other things from the lesson before we transition to that.
Sure.
If everybody can hear me and you're ready, I'll just go for it.
I think we're ready.
Okay, so lesson 19, Twister. My word of the week was grind, and oh my God, was it ever a grind? The lesson reminded me of the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. So out of the lesson, some things that stood out to me was transform yourself to match your landscape. Take a survey of what can happen and what cannot happen, and then think about what could happen but hasn't happened yet. This is the plot twist where the lesson gets its name. Learn to embrace and leverage change, even if you can't anticipate it. By anticipating other things, you learn to accept change when you recognize it. So exercise 1, my conflict this week was internal and external. It was trading versus work. Exercise 2, I'll show you the battle that I had this week. And exercise 3, my future battle is next week. It just continues, right? So one rule of operation is that I have exactly 1 hour to trade in the morning, every morning. And the 3 outcomes, after that, I may not have any time to watch my trade. So the 3 outcomes is either don't adapt and lose the battle, don't adapt and end up surrendering just from lack of will and energy, or adapt and win the battle and hopefully long-term win the war. So the trader exercise, no lose plus dinner for two. I've been studying it and listening to it and practicing it for a while. And at that point, I can just breathe again and even put on another position if I want, and I do really well at it on the lower time frames. Kind of failed on the 30-minute time frame. That's still a big work in progress for me. So we can start on the slides.
Okay, we're there.
I can't. Oh yeah, wait a minute.
I got Intel
No,
1.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. My screen was just a little messed up. So my first two trading mistakes happened on Sunday. It was really out of laziness, but man, it had a huge impact on my week. So I did two things. I stated in my plan to everyone that I wanted to make 10R for the week, which is actually kind of unrealistic for me. I've made more, but I usually make less. And I ended up being focused on getting to that 10R number, and that just really messed me up. And I also, as an accountability exercise, the first time I ever did it, I framed 3 30-minute swing trades and shared them with my accountability group, which was a great idea. But the way I executed it for me was terrible because I gave them a detailed plan of this is the size of my wrist box, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I made it larger than it should have been, probably thinking that was going to give me more room. And what it did is really mess me up because a large wrist box for me just doesn't work. So Intel will be my first example. The first trade there was actually the big tall green box is what I captured last Friday. That was a 3-minute trade with the R10 wrist box that was just an awesome trade, in and out in an hour. On Monday, I took the first signal long, held it all day long or most of the day, and got out at no lose plus dinner for two. And I had a lot of conflict in that trade to the point that I just couldn't trade it for the rest of the week, which was pretty perplexing. We can go to the next one. But I felt like I had a contract with the guys on those 4 symbols that I had to trade them no matter what, that I had to do what I say I was going to do. So this is the second symbol. You can tell that I was a little bit conflicted on Monday on every one of these 30-minute charts. My entries were all late because I thought I was prepared to trade, but I wasn't prepared for the internal conflicts because that's something I don't usually battle too terribly much. But I mean, I probably as much as anybody, but this week it was 300% worse than normal. So you see all my long entries are late, kind of. This was a 1-hour loss, no problem. And I just tried to grind it out. I kept re-entering. I got another no lose plus dinner for two, re-entered again, got a little tiny sliver. And then midweek, I was long near the end of the day on a 3-minute chart, elected, rightly so, not to hold it. So that was a good decision. I made another little no lose plus dinner for two on a smaller wrist box, and then had the huge gap up and just didn't have any will to engage in it. We can go to the next one. This is Alcoa, exactly the same entry. You can see a late entry on Monday. Held it, had a nice trade, closed it at the end of the day. 2 reasons. When I entered all these trades on Monday, it wasn't conscious at the time, but I became aware of the fact that the lazy side of me said, you're really busy at work. You don't have time. Why get up at 6 a.m. and day trade? Let's just put on a bunch of swing trades and hold them all week and we'll just crush it, which is a terrible plan. But there was some part of me that had that in mind. And my new rule is that I exit everything at the end of day unless there's a compelling reason to hold it. But the fact that I had a nice R capture here, which is not as good as it looks like, it's only a little over 2R because my wrist box was so large. I exited on the close and avoided the gap. And again, please excuse my Snagit drawings. I've just started trying to work with Snagit, and the orange dots are the trades that I saw but didn't take, and the green and red ones are the ones that I did take. And the orange and red look almost the same to me, so my apologies. I'll work on that. We can look at the next slide. So on Monday morning, I had 7 open trades, which is probably twice too many for me. And I managed them as best I could. This is another one of the symbols that I framed for the group. Entered it on Monday. There was a couple of better entries. I missed the first one, kind of FOMO'd into it because I felt like I just had to do what I said I was going to do. So I went long, big wide wrist box, lost 1R, no problem. But I just didn't have the will to engage the rest of the week, which would have been really easy to hold on to. So we can go to the next slide. This was one of my personal trades, EWW. I did not frame this one for the week. I felt like I had a proper size wrist box, and the trade was super easy to hold, stress-free. And again, I just closed it out mainly for an R capture or money management stop, thinking that I could re-enter, but really not having the will to trade toward the end of the week. So we'll check out the next one. This is one that I stalked all week waiting for the SSC, which is actually proper. That was my plan for the symbol, and entered the SSC actually on a lower time frame, so on the 3-minute chart. Held it all day. There was just no follow through, so I closed it properly at the end of the day. And again, just didn't have the will to re-engage the next morning, which would have been perfect for me. But I was out of energy and clarity and will and perspective by the end of the week. But in my markup, I noticed the beautiful collapsing dragon, where I could have gotten paid nicely to wait for my SSC all week long. And there was kata 2 after kata 2 after kata 2 all the way down. So we can go to the next one. This kind of sums up my week, this slide here. This was another trade that I didn't frame for the group, but kind of FOMO'd into it on Monday, thinking I'll put the trade on. And it was an okay entry. The PSAR ended up not flipping, so I should have gotten out early with some ruthless risk management there, but I didn't. But at the time, thinking I'm going to hold it for the week and it's just going to pay off beautifully, which was a false belief. Took my 1-hour loss where I was supposed to, and then I went down to the 3-minute time frame, took an SSC, which resulted in another 1-hour loss. And then I lost the will to engage in the trade that I had dreamed about, which happened the very next day. And I actually did engage. You can see that I took the trade and just didn't have the will to hold it. I held it about an hour and closed it, showing that I was out of the zero state. So there's some notes that you can read on that chart. I can't read them on my phone. But we can probably just go to the next trade or the next slide. Okay. Yeah, so here I said, I realized about midweek that my real plan, or a large part of me, thought, let's just don't work so hard this week and let's just put on a lot of 30-minute trades, hold them all week and crush them. That didn't work so easy for me. I had a flat week, and you can look at I put a red line on the zero line of my cumulative R, and that's a perfect map of my psychology for the week. So Monday, I just felt overwhelmed and closed the day at -3. But I did have some nice open profits, so that was not too concerning for me. Tuesday was still overwhelmed. Closed the day at 1.2 R up for the week. Wednesday was a disaster where I was down in the lower time frames trying to make 10 R when there was not 10 R available for me to be made. So I ended up closing that Wednesday at -5.2, which put me down -4 for the week. Kind of caught my breath, came back in on Thursday, and I made exactly 5.2 R, which took me back up to 1.2. Friday, I was pretty calm, but disinterested. There was lots of opportunity on Friday, but honestly, guys, I was just out of energy. I had just worn myself out frantically trading, earlier in the week. So I had 47 trades, ended up down 3/4 of an R, still trading too many symbols, taking too many trades, and that frantically trying to get to 10 R just drained out my energy. So the kind of the end result of this is I'm at the quarterly mark. So June was 4 months, actually a little over 4 months because I started the end of February, and I've got 599 trades. So I've been talking to Luke, and it's time for me to do like a quarterly review. It's going to take a little while because there's a lot of material to go through. But my sense is that 50% of all these trades are either mistakes of one kind or another that can be eliminated. So I'm going to go back through every trade by trade, and see what the data says. I'm up about 75R on the whole set, but my sense is that it could be many multiples of that if I could just trade less and trade better. So my question now, I know what I can do, and I know where my span of control breaks apart, and I know a lot of the trigger points that make me trade badly. So my goal for the next set of 500 or the next 4 months is, what is the least amount that I can do to get an average of 5R a week? And my priorities, just to sustain for the next 90 days, is sleep and exercise and reducing my decision points. And so I know I can trade 1 hour every morning. I'm going to do that because I've been pretty successful at that. And I'm going to still take some 30-minute swing trades, but I have to realize that I may not be able to properly manage them during the day because I may be flying and working. So I think that's all I got for you today. Oh, let me go through this. I think I can read it. Yeah, so what did I learn? I remember thinking on Wednesday, feeling just pretty much despair. I'm down 4R, and I thought, man, this is a lot of work for minus 4R, and that's a true statement. But by Friday, I realized that I'm down 3/4 of an R, and it's probably the cheapest lessons that I can ever learn if I'll choose to spend the time to learn them. And luckily, we have a holiday weekend here where I've got some time to mine those lessons that I could learn from my trading this week. And the idea of, I had one aha moment yesterday afternoon after the market closed. And for me, it's the idea of a trade list and not a watch list, because I'm interested in too many things. I want to know what Ken's trades are doing, and I want to know what all kinds of other things are doing. So I'm going to have a trade list, just a very small select list of prepared symbols to trade. And then I'll have a watch list that I can look at after the market, which will satisfy my curiosity about what's going on with Ken's trades. And yeah, conserving my energy for when it's required. The last half of the week would have just been really easy for me to take those SSC entries and hold on to them because they just worked. But by that time, I was out of energy. Don't ever believe in the trade, but take it anyway. And I actually did the math. I don't need 10R a week. Actually, 2.5%, or if I'm risking 1%, or 0.5%, actually 2.5R per week would actually meet any financial goals that I need. And then my quote of the week is, when there's nothing to do, do nothing. But that's Ken's quote, but I changed it a little bit to do no thing. Like, I don't need to be looking for trades to try to make 10R. Just trade what I plan to trade and take whatever it gives me for the week. I think that will help me keep my energy levels high, certainly reduce the stress, and I could easily cut the trades down by 1/2 or 2/3, and I would have been no worse off and probably better off than I was this week. So that's what I got for today. I hope.
Hey, before we go to Chinlaw, just let me a couple just quick notes before I forget. One of them is on the difference between having goals and having a system. Believe it or not, Scott Adams, who's the cartoonist behind Dilbert, is really more of a self-help and productivity expert than he is a cartoonist, and currently persona non grata. And his idea is that, and it's not the only place I've ever seen it, but he says it pretty well. If you're goal focused, then you are externally focused, and you're looking beyond the limits of the machine that you're running. And as you're running out of time in the week or whatever to achieve your goal, you start adding urgency and urgency and urgency, and that's not necessarily the thing that gets you to your goal. What gets you to the goal is the machine that you're running, the machine that you're riding, the machine that you're using. And that's your system. And he recommends, and I agree, that you spend time on your rules and understanding them and fine-tuning them and improving them and being moderate in all things, and then let it go where it's going to go. And then when the alignment with the market is right, then it'll work big. And then you get surprised by the results. But really it's paying attention to the machine, attention to the system, and finding healthy, helpful rules. And focusing there, the goals will come because you're internally focused on the process. So this is nothing more than a process versus outcome focus. Like a good basketball foul shooter goes through exactly the same ritual and shoots it the same way 1,000,000 times, just like in practice. So regardless of all the people in the end zone with the little wiggly straws and the noise, dude, I'm just shooting foul shot. You're paying to watch me practice shooting foul shots. So how good is that as a leg? So there's not even any stress. They're just doing what they do and just saying, the more relaxed, the bigger the win. So the system is to be repetitive on how to shoot the foul shot, and the performance comes from attending to those details. And then regardless of the circumstances, you shoot it exactly the way you shoot it in practice. But what that means is that you've got to give it respect in practice so that every shot is the same. You know, that you're treating it with exactly the same respect in practice that you do in the real world. And that's what Musashi and the sword masters from Japan say too, is that it must be the same in order to work. So focusing on systems rather than goals. And then I would just note it, notice the feeling that you had when you were down 4.7%. And if you were to describe it, the words that I felt that I feel when I'm in that condition is just sort of disgusted, like, dude, you know better. Just clear the deck and trade. And that sort of bitter, self-loathing, self-hatred, not quite that unhealthy, but exactly that way. Exactly that feeling of just, look, I'm so disinterested in this that I am absolutely not even trying to do it. In fact, I'm only going to trade this just so I can prove how bad I am and really just wallow in self-pity. That turns out to be the best mindset for me to be in when I'm just like, because I got nothing to prove, but just the persistence that I'm just going to grind through this, and I welcome the pain of losing. I like that. I like the feeling of that kind of grinding and friction. And that's why when I kind of get on the far end of that, if I'm on the optimistic side of the curve, I'm already starting to suspect things. I just know that about myself, and I use that to my advantage as sort of the inner barometer of where I am. And if you think about that zero state diagram that has the vertical axis between joy and self-loathing, and then the past, present, and future, I like to be on the front foot for the next trade with a slight positive, aggressive, but grim determination. Is I know how to do this. I'm just going to do it. in spite of being a knucklehead, you know, that I'm better than this, and I'm just going to do what I got to do. The team's counting on me, and so that turns out to me to be the zero state of ideal mindset for the next trade. Not one of passive lotus, no emotion, but a certain feeling and flavor. So I would spend some time thinking about exactly the words and the music and the tone and the setting of that realization at minus 4.7. That would have been a very easy place to say, you know what, the hell with the rest of this week. I'm just going to stop trading and I'm going to get after it on Monday. Or I can just trade the way I'm going to trade because that's always a good thing. And bang, there you were. It turned it around, and it still didn't feel abnormal. Just sort of, well, I'm just back in the groove, and you already erased that whole. So if that's your worst week ever, that's a great worst week. And that's the rising lows of a kata 2, in psychologically speaking. So that's what I want to say about that. Aho. Yeah, so I'm going to hit the tones, and then Chunlong, we're looking at you.
Okay. My word of last week is gratitude. Simply like that. When I think about that word, I feel better. I hope I have more deeply understanding about that, but just that, feel better. My trading last week, so I decided to relax my rule, give me more chance to take trade. So I decided to take 2 trades concurrently, and that make me take a more trade like more than I should. So the total I took 52 trades, and the net result is minus 2R. That's for last month, my results break even. Just pay the platform commissions. I think that's 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. Another key issue is I made another 2R loss. That's something I try to avoid, but this time it's different. I don't think it's a mistake because I did that really intentionally. I treat the 30-minute charts. I always have my stop in the market. So I have a 5 trade in. I cancel 1 stop for 1 trade. See just what happened if I don't have my stop in. What happened? Can I manage to get out with maximum 1 hour loss? I did get a chance to get out with 1 hour or better loss, but I didn't get out. See that come to 2 hour and bounce back. I didn't get out. The second time get to the 2 hour loss, I get out. I didn't feel much about that. Just my intentionally test what do I feel. But after the market closed, I realized, I make the week negative, so I feel really bad. Psychologically, cost me a couple hours to recover from that bad feeling. That's my trading for last week. So over the weekend, attending the accountability group, watch the Friday podcast. I decided to do something new now. I revised my plan again for next week. So what I decide, I will take one share trade. I will try to leave the trade open overnight. That make me, I have to take the trade, the register less than $5. So my overnight risk will be less than $5. So I make sure my risk is less than $5 per trade. That's why I change my rules. The reason is when I take the 30 minutes swing trade, I found out I lack of the perspective of what will happen for the next day or next week. That's why I want to try leave the trade open overnight, see what happens next day. That's my intention. My issue is it's not cut the loss short for now. My issue is let the profit run. So I will try leave the trade open. The second thing I want to do, so to make my perspective on the high time frame, I will relearn Ken's triple screen, use that system as my long entry signal to frame my 30-minute trade. That's my plan for the next week for the swing trading. I really like the triple screening. I like it because the rule is really clear to the numbers. The William percent R and I forget the other index. But that rule is clear. I can set that in the stock charts. Give me a signal every day by the market close. Today's lesson I like it because the reading is short. It allow me to do the 3 exercise. I did the 3 exercise, but I will give you my exercise for the number 3. The number 3 is identify a future theater of war or other zone of potential hostile conflict. Isolate one rule of operation that makes that theater unique. What are 3 unprecedented outcomes that could result from that rule? So I think about Ukraine war. How about all the powerful aircraft, airplane, are forbidden in the world? You cannot use anything from the Air Force. You can only use the drone for the battle. So what will happen? The 3, outcome will be, so the major battle force are teenagers because they can operate drone much better than adult soldiers. The next one, fly drones become a mandatory course in every high school of the world. The third will be, China government goes to extremes. Again, they reform their laws and the flight drone has to be taught in the kindergarten. That's how I treat the outcome in my mind. I found that interesting. The traders exercise, I like it again. I watched that video again. What I decide to do, I will watch that video in next 30 days every day. Right now, my routine includes watch the 12 battle drill video, that 20-minute video every day at the beginning is really difficult for me, even to start to watch that video. Now I can do that very easily. The second video I watch every day is, can call that flashcard 4. Is a RL10 versus the Dragon. In that video, can talk about no later than, no early than entry at exit. I like that. I watch that along with the 12 battle drill. The third video I watch is from very early days, can talk about why you have to raise the stop to no lose plot dinner for 2 and 1 to do that. That's have something to do with the R histogram and the average wins. So I watch that 3 video every day. Now I will add the today's from lesson 19 video to that list. That taking me maybe 2 hours to do that every day. That's my plan, and for next week's, I hope.
Yeah, let me know when you can see that screen.
We got it.
Yeah, so this was one of the trader's exercises from lesson 18 in the creativity course. So I just want to, do my work on it. Yeah, so there was a video above, but it really was about this trade. So here's the exercise. What is the yellow box? Well, here's one, and here's one. Right. So this was an end of the day, and this is what it looks like when it is completely non-directional. It is compressed into that wrist box. So if I just call that noise, when the little algorithms and the trading robots are trading back and forth, that's how big the box is. So it closes here. Next day it opens up here, briefs down, and then comes up, and I decide I'm just going to buy it and put this noise box on it. It gapped larger than a noise box. It gapped 2 noise boxes. And then instead of failing, it did this, 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 which I see as coming to a triangle like that, and now it does this. In that moment, when I see that little blue arrow, to me, that's the single most important moment in every trade. Like, it had a chance to fail here. That would have been least surprising, because it got me in and then it got me. And I'd have gone short from there, hoping to get down 2 units of risk, believing that this little support level would fail, and that's where the shenanigans would begin. and that this would have just been the gap and trap. And so I'd have been out here short not later than there. But it didn't do that. It did this, and then it gave me this little rising lows. And then right here, where it could have also failed to scratch or to lose a full R, instead it didn't do that. Instead, what it did was this. And so I take that moment to say, look, let me get my risk out to here. To which I would say, well, if price is already here, why wouldn't I just move my stop to there? And just lock in that little wedge and call that no lose plus dinner for two while this is going up. Not even watching that. Just my job is to get this stop into here. And then I can go see what it's doing and then figure out how to raise this. So am I going to raise my stop like that? Am I going to raise it in a series of ratchets? Whatever. You decide. It's now a science project. Once I can get it from here all the way to here. So what is the yellow box? It's the noise, it's the risk, it's the amount of uncertainty, which I've tried to reduce to a measurable, objective value. And I noticed that the gap was actually 3 of those, right? 1, 2, 3. So this feels like, hey, that could be, and then this little quick sell and go feels like that could have just been gap and go. All right. So just on that basis of that feeling, anchored into that 3 steps, monkey mind enters and I immediately regret. So I put my stop in. There's my... Now, if you set this equal to 0.3, you'll be happy forever. If you set it to 0.6, you'll have twice the position size, but you still won't take a 1R loss. If you set that equal to a 1R loss, then you will live in constant anxiety saying, as it approaches a 1R loss, should I try to take less than a 1R loss? And then now you're spending a lot of time and energy and effort to try to manage things inside the noise box. So don't do that. This is already noise because we said that was noise. So just set it equal to 0.3, leave it alone until that breaks, and then go short to capture the 2R just back to the close. And then if it fails again, put a second position on, and then you'll be happy with a collapsing dragon. So set that equal to 0.3. Be done with it. Then you have 1/3 of the position size that your monkey mind wanted to put on when it optimistically saw this as a gap and go. So take 1/3 of the position size and then put your stop in to protect against a loss of 2 more, and then get short here if you have to, or short here if you want to. That's all. Now, do we need to know why your monkey mind entered here? Actually, not really. It's enough just to be in. And now backwards reasoning, you're saying, okay, there's my 3, I just protected against 2/3 of the risk. I'll call that 0.3. I'll call this my position sizing risk. Oh, and while I was recognizing that, it moved out right away. And now, in a matter of a couple of minutes, I can get my... And if I'm just going to go to there, go to there. Done in one. Your risk manager place the stop? So your monkey gets you in here because of the optimism. Your risk manager says, well, let me stop that stuff right now. Let me only expose myself to a third of the risk that is routinely there, to the place where I want to get short. Okay. Now you are the fireman that is saving the day. The fireman is the guy that says, how soon can I get this stop to here? Maybe I could do it on the very first bar and just say, let me lock in that little piece. If you do that, you had a minute of open risk, and that might or might not have gotten you out. So what? Or you could maybe wait and see, let it, since this is only 0.3 anyway, I'm not in some burning urgency to try to preserve the first noise move. So maybe I can just say, let me wait until this break. When it had 2 chances to fail, 3, 4, and it didn't. And now it's actually voting up. Maybe now's the time the fireman comes in and says, now's the time to save the day. You decide when you want to save the day, here or there. I like this one. And only because by making that a 0.3, I'm able to tolerate a little bit of favorable noise. So now, where would you place the stop? If you find yourself right here and you see this, where do you place the stop? It can't be here because you would have let it go to a minus 0.1 or something. Oh, you decided to move it this far but not that far? Really? Just move it there. Lock in some little wedge. How should we feel once this stop is in place? How should we feel? A tremendous sense of relief, the R. What should we say to our monkey mind? Here's your banana. We gave it to him for here's your banana because I was able to have not a crazy stop. I give him a reward for giving me it right here, not because it worked, but because he gave me the inspiration. What should we say to the firemen? Just our inexpressible thanks for life. Who's my exit manager? Well, from here, it's your assistant manager, who's then going to pick some kind of conservative trend following a conservative trend follow like the Bollinger Band mean or the edge of the river, or maybe at some point the southern edge of the dragon. And then maybe my sniper, if it's going to be north of the dragon, because this thing did really well, if it's north of the dragon, then I'm already graduating it up into the sniper. But the assistant manager just has to pick something easy like a PSAR or the edge of the river or the southern skin of the dragon, and I can trade up. I could start with the Bollinger Band mean and then just pick the next one and the next one and the next one. And once I pick it, leave it alone. And then use the sniper to do the aggressive strike if you want. So once you know who your assistant manager is, what's the guidance in the SOP? Well, I start with the Bollinger Band mean, then go to the river, then go to the PSAR or whatever. And then you have a standard practice for how to adjust routine. And then when this thing gets above, if it gets above an average win, check. Now bring in the regular manager who's going to make sure that we never let an above average win become an average win. And we never let an average win go to below average. Right? So that's what I mean by a standing operating procedure. And so I would now just have you come back and reflect on, in this location, having seen that, do you put your stop here? Do you put it exactly at break even? Do you put it underneath these guys? Do you put it underneath that guy? Do you make it a 1 bar low? Anything better than this is correct. 1, 2, or 3. You just pick one and live with it and document it. The main thing is that it's no lose plus dinner for 2 in any one of those, and you have eliminated your risk, and you rewarded your monkey, and you really rewarded your fireman, and you went through all the changes, and you may discover that that's reason enough, the gap and go. Especially if you had an SSC and it came into here and you said, you know what, I'm just going to cash my win inside the noise and be happy, and then the next morning I see that. So if you had that kind of context, which is not shown here, then that might make this more of a reasoned response to a morning failure to fail, and more of a standard continuation once the opening shenanigans are resolved. So just the fact that this thing, if that's my noise box, and this thing from the close gapped 3 noise boxes and gave me a 1 chance to fail and didn't, and then made a new high of the day, that was enough for me to go. That's how sophisticated my entry is. This is what distinguishes everything after that as professional. I even would say that's the professional monkey, just saying, give me a situation, and now I'm going to manage my way out of it. I'm going to make the best of a monkey situation. I'll live with that. Because this is the moment of maximum uncertainty anyway. When you can't see that, this is the moment of maximum uncertainty. What's possible here? Everything. What's the basis for judging what might happen? Nothing. So that's always a monkey response anyhow. It is pure probability. There was just enough reason, 3 risk boxes, and a continuation where it went fail and then went, and it made a new high. And then I put a standard stop on it here, which was, this. Fine. Happy with that. So, think about that. Notice your triggers when you see places that your monkey wants to get in. Just notice them. If you can put after the fact, you may not even have seen this at the time you put the trade on. But once you do the analysis and you see that, you might end up making that a tentative rule, little r, which could become an accepted rule as part of an entry strategy. So now that's how you go from the monkey mind to the rule-based mind. As you listen to this again in the future, when I make that a separate lesson, what are your aha moments now? And then, what are your next steps? Those are the ones that matter. Where's my little stop share? Okay. All right, I'm going to ask you to listen for the sound of the next word that comes to your mind for the week ahead. Shunlong, what's your word for the week?
Patience.
Jeff.
Routine.
Greg.
Evidence.
Documentation. All right, fellas. Good to see you. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Go burn some meat on a barbecue. And Jeff, stay safe.
We'll try.
And thank you for all you do out there.
Thank you.
Take care, fellas. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will carve that out, Jeff. I'm going to carve that out and make that a separate lesson and send you the link.
Yeah, I think if I could watch that sooner rather than later, there's lots of value in there for me.
You're talking the little yellow box?
Well, the whole
the whole thing?
C202 one, right? But I actually
Okay,
think your No Lose Plus Dinner for Two Talk was probably the best one I've heard. Or maybe it's just because I'm listening differently. I don't know, but it was all great.
Yeah, I try to say it the same way every time, but differently.
Right. Well, and I hear it differently after 500 trades than the first time I heard it. Right?
Exactly.
It's just, yeah.
That's like listening to the guitar work of Chet Atkins. The first couple times you listen to it, you say, what's so special about that? He's just playing soft notes perfectly every single time. And then you listen to a bunch of music, and then you come back and listen to Chet Atkins and say, oh yeah, that's why. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Thanks.
Take good care.
Thank you.
Cheers.